The most powerful prayer in humanity is a single word. It's a single word that no human can speak with their mouth. It's our God's name, you know? And to be able to speak our God's name, you have to understand, you know, who, what, how, all this stuff about God. You have to understand who God is, you know? You have to gain as many understandings about God as you can so you can say their name. And I'll try to break it down real simple. It's like a path in life, you know? God created this universe, and everything in here they created, our mind gains understanding when we observe it, and when we, you know, mess with it or whatever, we gain understandings, you know? And it's like an extension of our mind power, the natural extension of our mind power to gain the understandings, you know, in our home world, you know what I mean? Our home planet. And it strengthens our mind, basically. So basically, you have to gain these understandings first to say God's name, you know what I mean? Because without the understandings, you won't be able to do it. And then also, see, I don't know if you have to live a good path in life or be a good person or any of this stuff, or maybe you have to have a really high level of respect, or maybe that doesn't matter. I don't really know. There's a bunch of stuff I don't know. I don't know if that path matters or not, you know? I don't know. But what I do know is you need these understandings to be able to form a thought in your mind of God's name. And it's really simple to explain, but hard to get there, you know what I mean? I would say it would probably, I'm 40, I just turned 42 today, you know what I mean? Halloween, my birthday, just turned 42. And it took me 42 years to figure this shit out, you know what I mean? To get to this point. But anyways, man, it's so difficult to explain. You gotta understand who God is, right? God's been the same forever, for eternity. And I'm not talking about the beginning of eternity, you know, before this reality existed. There's no such thing as the beginning of eternity, because, like, before this reality existed, you know, God already existed for eternity. God existed for an eternity, a whole eternity, you know, which is, you know, forever and always, you know. That's how long God was there, you know. And they've been the same this whole time. They've had a name this whole time, you know what I mean? And who is God? God's the element of consciousness that exists, you know? That's the simplest way to put it. Just like elements on this planet exist, like water, you know? Think of it like and God's like an element like water that exists, you know, but prior to this reality existing and eternally as an element of consciousness. And who would an element of consciousness be? Existing for eternity. They've already existed for eternity, you know what I mean? So they'd be omnipotent, because that's a long time to, you know, be using your consciousness. So the mind power would be beyond any of our comprehension, basically. So endless mind power, you know what I mean? And just I don't know, the way they feel about things and how they think, you know, would be the same in eternity and still now. Nothing would change. Nothing would change. But anyways, so you got to figure out who that kind of person would be. They're a eternal element of consciousness that exists. So they use consciousness, you know what I mean? They've used the consciousness for eternity. So it would make sense, total sense, that their name, to say their name, you wouldn't use human words, because they had their name before human words existed, you know? They also existed before, male or female existed, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people like say God's a man or whatever, but why would there be a man existing for eternity? You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And even emotions needed for survival on this planet, like anger and hate and stuff like that. Like, why would they have that emotion ever in eternity? You know what I mean? Why would they ever have that emotion that we need for survival on this planet? Just for survival. That's all we need it for. That's what we have emotions like that just for survival or whatever. But anyways, you say their name with your consciousness, and it's like an endless thought. You have to think of who is the element of eternal consciousness that exists. Who is that? And then once you get there, once you can like form that thought, which will take you a lifetime of gaining understanding to be able to get there. But once you get there, right, you use your consciousness to form the thought, and then you start traveling back in time through eternity, to the beginning of eternity. And once you get to the beginning of eternity, realize there is no beginning of eternity, do it again. And then just keep going and keep going and keep going. It's like an endless thought. And you can, say God's name, but you can never finish saying God's name because we don't live long enough. We don't live long enough to say the name of an eternal being, the eternal element of consciousness that exists, because it's an eternal element of consciousness. It would take basically an eternity to say their name, and anyways, that's the most powerful prayer that exists. The name of God. Try saying it. Because, honestly, what is it? 1 out of 7 people on this planet don't believe in God, which is fine, because if you lack understanding to understand something, why would you believe something you don't understand? It makes total sense or whatever. But 6 out of 7 people do believe in God. And most of these people get their version of God, who God is, from a book. And the book's like, God's just like humans, and God has a penis. An eternal being with a penis and a name with a human word, that doesn't make sense in my mind, because I understand a bunch of shit. I gain the understandings in this reality. I make it a point to do that, And I'm not talking about watching TV. I'm talking about which TV, works too, but think of it like if you're watching TV and you see the ocean, right? You're seeing the ocean. Oh, it's nice, it's nice. Compare that to going to the ocean and, putting your feet in it and jumping in it and feeling the wind and the sun, way, way, way more understandings in your brain from that experience than the TV. You know what I mean? Anyways, yeah, to say the name of God, it'll take you a while to get there. You'll have to form the thought within your consciousness and your mind, because God is an element of consciousness, so you use your consciousness to say their name, because they existed for eternity with a name, and they didn't have a mouth. They had consciousness the whole time, so that you say their name with consciousness. And it is a path to get there, You can't just form the thought in your head. You can't read a book and, read the book and then form a thought oh, this book taught me how to form thought. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. You have to go to the source of the understandings and gain the understandings to strengthen your mind and gain the education, that this planet offers to all conscious life. Gain it so you can say God's name or whatever, It's the most powerful prayer that exists. A single word. Don't even say nothing else. Don't ask for nothing, You can say whatever you want, Give some emotions if you want during that time or whatever, but just say their name. That's it. Just think of it like the instinctive process of your mind, Plus the path you lead in life. That might matter, might not. Plus some other factors that might matter, might not, I'll leave that to the religious people to figure out. Because me, yeah, I believe in God. I tell you what my understanding of God is, and I feel like I'm right. Could be wrong, but I feel like I'm right. But I don't know. I think of myself as like a researcher, like a scientist, you know what I mean? Like I try to research shit and spiritual stuff, I research shit like that or whatever. Like when I look at when I read old religious books, I read them like archaeologists would read them. Like some stuff I understand, some stuff I don't. I leave it at that. And yeah, yeah. Like honestly, I really don't think religion matters. I only think the growth of your soul, who you grow into, is all that matters at all. Who have you grown into at this moment in time? And can you do better? That's all that really matters. Because comparing ourselves to an element of eternal consciousness with omnipotence, comparing our limited perspective meat minds to that and our understandings of reality to God, it's not going to matter what we believe. It's not even going to matter if it's not going to matter what we believe. It only matters who you grow into. In any case, the most powerful prayer that has ever existed, that has been said many, many times throughout history, that is said by people even today, because it is an instinctive process that leads to, this type of understanding and this type of knowledge or whatever. But, yeah. A very easy way to understand the name of God, is from an animal's perspective. Like, yeah, my dog, my cat, or a deer, any animal that exists, They have a meat mind that does the same stuff that ours does to a point, They observe shit, they gain understandings, and then they know shit, They just don't form words like we do. We form words. Like when we observe this reality and we ask ourselves questions about God, we make a bunch of words like, oh, God's like this and God's like that. And, oh, I think God's like this. I think God's like that. I think God's like this. I think God's like, you know what I mean? We do that. And maybe we're right. Maybe we're wrong, It's hard to tell. But with animals, what they do is they observe, they understand, and they just know. They just know. They don't make words. They just know. And it's that conscious thought that is the name of God. You know what I mean? Just try to understand. Try to understand that. I feel like that's the most powerful word that exists. And it's a word you can't speak with your mouth. You have to speak it with your consciousness. Anyways, today's my birthday. Turned 42 today. Took me 42 years to figure out God's name. I was getting there, for a while, like, oh, God's like this, God's like that. But once I slipped into that thought, that's a thought that, continues or whatever. But, it's pretty sick. Anyways, just want to share that.